outside of D.C. or Vermont that was on the campaign. And at that time, I told some folks that I think if we do this correctly and we get a few breaks, that it could be an adventure that was both joyful and purposeful. And quite simply because of everybody on this call and thousands of other people like you, that's exactly what it became. I had the great honor during this journey to be in 6 different states. I've met a lot of you that are on this call. I look forward to meeting more of you in Philadelphia when we get there. And I just want to share one thing with you that I think is very important today. When the senator called me to ask me and to talk to me actually about whether I would be interested in helping to organize Iowa, the first question he asked me wasn't how do I win Iowa or how do we do this or explain this to me. The first question he asked me, which is the first time this question had been asked to me in 20 years of doing this, was, do you understand my politics? And when I told him I did, his next question wasn't any of those things either. His next question was, are you comfortable with them? And to me, that made all the difference. And having gotten to know him over the course of the last year, I can tell you that explains exactly why we were able to, with your incredible help, build what was built. Because it didn't matter whether I was good or bad at what I did or how good I was at it. What mattered was that I understood that this movement had to be a movement that came from the grassroots and was built upward. And I could have been James Carville or David Axelrod. And if I didn't understand that, then it wasn't going to happen. And quite simply, if the senator didn't believe that, it wouldn't have happened. So I just wanted to share that with all of you. Again, thank you for making it joyful and purposeful. And with that, I just want to turn it over to Senator Sanders and to speak about the next couple of weeks as we move forward to Philadelphia.
Pete, thank you very much for those words, and thank you very much for all that you've done over the last year. I remember that discussion. I was right outside on the grass outside of the office building in Washington, D.C., and you've done a great job in Iowa and elsewhere, and I thank you, and I thank everybody on the phone for the incredible work that you have all done. What I want to do this evening, and I'm not going to take too much time, is basically kind of capture what we have accomplished over the last year, where I believe we are today, and where we have got to go in the future. And Pete, began that discussion. This is what we have accomplished in the last year. We have done something unprecedented in the modern history of the United States of America. And I want everybody on the phone to understand that. You have helped make history. When we began the campaign, the media, the establishment, all of the big politicians thought we were a fringe campaign. We weren't going to go anyplace. Well, I think history has shown them not to be quite right about that. What we proved is the ideas that we have advocated and the need for a bold and progressive agenda that takes on the billionaire class, that attempts to transform this country, to create a government that works for all of us and not just the 1%. Well, you know what? These are not wild and radical and crazy ideas. Turns out that millions of Americans in every state in this country support them. And maybe that is the most important thing that we have accomplished. As all of you know, after the votes in California were finally counted, took a bit of time, we ended up winning about 1 million votes in the primaries and caucuses throughout the country. And what is very significant is, I think I'm right on this, that we won a significant majority of young people, and by young people I mean people 45 years of age or younger, in virtually every primary and caucus that we engaged in. And that means young white people, young black people, young Latino people, young Asian American people, young Native Americans. And that is an extraordinary accomplishment because the young people, obviously, by definition, are the future of this country, and they sided with us, and in some cases, by outrageously big margins. We won 22 states around the country, and we lost a number of them by a hair. We lost Missouri by a few votes, Kentucky by a few votes, and some other states by a few votes. But we ended up with 22 states in this country that we won. We won over 1,800 pledged delegates, which is what all of you are, and we won, I think, 45 or 50 Super Bowl delegates, not very many. And what we showed, and again, this is revolutionary, unprecedented, that you can run a successful national campaign with small donations without a super PAC. We received 8 million individual contributions, averaging $27 apiece from 2.5 million Americans. The significance of that is that if you have an agenda that speaks to the needs of working people will respond. And by the way, make no mistake about it, the overwhelming majority of the donations that we received came from working people and in some cases, very low-income people. We, in this campaign, forced a discussion in the media, in political circles, on some of the most important issues facing this country, but issues that the establishment had chosen for obvious reasons to push underneath the rug. We talked about, and will continue to talk about, the grotesque level of income and wealth inequality, the importance of breaking up the large banks on Wall Street. We exposed our horrendous trade policies, including the DPP, our broken criminal justice system, and our people's lack of access to affordable health care, being the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care, and the very poor quality of education in this country, including the fact that so many of our people, by the millions, leave school deeply in debt. We fought aggressively to address the crisis of climate change, the need for real comprehensive immigration reform, the importance of developing a foreign policy that values diplomacy over war. And those are just a few of the issues that we touched upon during the campaign. Issues which now have kind of been absorbed by the mainstream, and that is no small accomplishment. Now, as many of you know, we had a number of people in the last several weeks who participated in the platform writing process. The first meeting was in St. Louis a couple of weeks ago, and that was with the drafting committee. We had 5 great people on that committee. And then just last weekend, there was a meeting, a larger meeting, of the full platform committee and the adoption of the platform. And please understand this. We were in the minority. Secretary Clinton had more people on the committee than we did. And then on top of that, you had representatives from the Democratic National Committee. But despite that, both in St. Louis and Orlando, our people very, very clearly, I don't think anyone denies this, were able to a very significant degree write much of the platform. Not all of it, but write much of the platform, a platform which I think nobody disagrees is the most progressive platform by far in the history of the Democratic Party. I just very briefly want to touch on some of what we got into the Democratic platform. We got a $15 an hour federal minimum wage. We got the expansion of Social Security. We got the abolition of the death penalty. We got them to put a price on carbon, which is absolutely necessary if we're going to deal with climate change. We had them establish a path toward the legalization of marijuana, getting it out of Schedule 1 of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. Enact major criminal justice reform, pass comprehensive immigration reform, and for-profit prisons and detention facilities, break up too big to fail banks, and create a 21st century Glass-Steagall Act, close loopholes that allow big companies to avoid taxes by stashing their profits in the Cayman Islands and other tax havens, and to use that revenue to create millions of jobs by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. The Democratic platform approved the most expansive agenda ever for protecting Native American rights. And that's just some of what we have accomplished. In addition, above and beyond the platform, I trust most of you know that there are now, I think, 5 states in this country where the party chairs come from the political revolution. 5 states. That means that there is new energy in the Democratic Party, and we are opening the doors to ordinary Americans to get involved in the political process. So that is just some of what we have accomplished. Question is, where do we go from here? How do we build upon our successes? How do we continue the political revolution? And let me just say what I think all of you know, if we're honest about it. And that is, in the last many years, last number of decades, it has been the right wing in this country which has pushed the agenda. The Republican Party used to be a center-right party. It is now a right-wing extremist party. 50 years ago, the Democratic Party could likely, under Roosevelt, Truman maybe, be considered a party of the working class. I think very few people would consider that to be the case today. The whole political spectrum in both parties has moved to the right. What is also very, very troubling and not widely discussed is that beyond the fact that the Republicans now control, right-wing Republicans control the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate, what is not discussed a whole lot is that over the last 8 years, Republicans have captured some 900 seats in state houses all across this country that used to be controlled by Democrats. So the right wing is winning not only here in Washington, they are winning in state after state all across this country. Now, it seems to me that if we are going to turn this country around and defeat the right-wing extremism that we see all over, we need to build a movement that is prepared to fight at every level of government. Trust me, but for a very personal reason, I want to see the Democrats regain the United States Senate and the United States House. But we have got to start running candidates and winning elections at the school board level, at the city council level, at the county commissioner level, at the state legislature level, in addition to running great candidates for the House and the Senate. We also need, and to me this is very important, having been all over this country in the last year, we need to create a 50-state strategy. We cannot leave good people, progressives, hanging out there by themselves in red states. And we've got to invest in making sure that we have the kind of organization that those people need in those states to eventually win. Now, needless to say, it is true that in winning the Democratic nomination for presidency, we came up short. I mean, I wish I could tell you that was not the case, but it is the case. Hillary Clinton ended up, after all of the primaries and the caucuses, with 389 more pledged delegates than we had, and obviously with a hell of a lot more superdelegates than we had. But I want all of you to understand, and I say this from the bottom of my heart, believe me, I worked as hard as I could with your help to win this thing, to become president of the United States, because we need a progressive president to help transform this country. But from day one, and you all heard me say this a million times, this campaign, this election was not just about me, and it was not just about electing a candidate to be president. It was about creating a political revolution. It was about bringing millions of people together to reclaim this country from the millionaires and billionaires who now control it. And that is what this campaign was about from day one. Now, what does that mean in terms of where we are right now? It means that in the coming weeks, I will be announcing the creation of successor organizations to our presidential campaign to advance the struggle that we have been a part of for these past 15 months. In other words, I think it would be just horrific and an outrage if we allowed the energy that we created and the movement that we built to simply wither on the roadside. We've got to build on what we have done. Our goal, it seems to me, must be to advance the progressive agenda that we believe in and to elect like-minded candidates, progressives, at every level of government, federal, state, and local, who are committed to our goals. As all of you already know, and with your help, we are now supporting a number, I don't remember the exact numbers, probably 15 or 20 right now, great candidates at the local and state and national levels. We got Russ Feingold in the Senate. We got a bunch of good candidates in the House. We have wonderful candidates around the country at the state legislature level. California, we have a good candidate, very strong candidate, county commissioner, etc. That number must significantly expand in the coming months. Our goal is to encourage people to run for office or to support candidates running for office at the local, state, and federal level. And our goal with this new organization is to help those candidates financially and to help them logistically. A lot of people are just getting involved in politics, don't know how you go about doing A, B, and C. There are some rudimentary things that people need to know, and we can provide that type of expertise. And my hope is that in a fairly short period of time, we can be supporting at least, and I hope a lot more than that, 100 candidates all across this country. Now, on top of that, let me just tell you about my own personal short-term goals and what I will be focusing on in the next few months. Number one, and by the way, when I'm finished with this, I want to respond to a bunch of questions that you have sent in. I don't know if I got all of them, but I got a whole lot of them, and I'll try to do my best to respond to them. But what I think we have got to do, short term, is come out of the Democratic Convention in Philadelphia as strong as possible. Now, I know that some of you have asked, will there be a roll call vote? And the answer is absolutely. Of course there will be a roll call vote. I think it's imperative that the entire country and the world, for that matter, know what we have accomplished. 1,900 delegates is a large number of delegates. And we got them, in every state in this country. So there will be a roll call vote, and we need all of you there to make sure that we get all of the delegates that we want to be counted. Also, it is my understanding that I and some of our other leaders will be speaking before the entire convention, and I hope that you all will be there to hear us. As I mentioned a moment ago, we have had significant success in creating a progressive Democratic platform. Again, it's by far the most progressive in Democratic Party history. But did we get everything we wanted? No, the answer is obviously we did not. The language that is in the platform around the TPP, in my view, is much too weak, although it is supported by the AFL-CIO and many of the union people who were there. Furthermore, we lost the debate in both St. Louis and Orlando regarding Medicare for all, and language regarding the Middle East, in my view, is also too weak. Having lost those fights in St. Louis and Orlando, I think that there is zero chance that we will win them in Philadelphia. But it seems to me that the fight we should now be focusing on the floor of the convention, if necessary, is the need to transform the Democratic Party into a grassroots party and break its dependency on big money interests. And that is no small thing. Shortly before the Democratic convention convenes in Philadelphia, there will be a meeting of the Rules Committee. And we have some very strong advocates who will be on that committee, who will be fighting for fundamental reforms within the Democratic Party. And I'll just mention a few. To my mind, it is absolutely imperative that we address the issue of the role of superdelegates in the Democratic Party. Frankly, what we all saw in just this last election is some 400 delegates were on board Secretary Clinton's campaign 8 months before the first vote was cast and before anybody was even an official candidate. And that, to me, sounds pretty dumb. And I think we have got to take a hard look at the superdelegate situation and make some fundamental changes regarding that. It also, to my mind, means that we have to fight the issue of closed Democratic primaries. This takes place in many states around the country. New York State comes to my mind. If you can believe it, in New York State, 3 million people were prevented from participating in the Democratic primary because they had registered as independents. And they would have had to change their registration 6 months or so, I think, before the Democratic primary in New York. That is crazy stuff. And it is simply, I think, an effort to maintain status quo politics in New York and in other states as well. That is an issue that we've got to fight. And if we cannot win it in the Rules Committee, I believe that we should take it to the floor. And here's another issue that I hope people will think about. And that is how we convert the Democratic Party away from the money interest and the perpetual raising of funds and convert it really into a people-oriented party and a grassroots party. In my view, instead of spending hundreds of millions of dollars on never-ending television ads, the Democratic Party should be investing in grassroots efforts, getting people out to knock on doors all over this country. My view is now and always has been the most effective way to turn people around is to have a smart, intelligent person knocking on somebody's door and sitting down with them and talking about the issues of the day. And we have got to focus on grassroots, local organizing, something that the Democratic Party today does virtually none of. There may be some states where some of it takes place, but I would say, by and large, that does not take place. So those are, and there are more ideas out there, but the issues that will come before the Rules Committee, which meets just before the convention, will deal with superdelegates, closed primaries, converting the Democratic Party into a grassroots party, which opens the door to working people and young people. All right? Now, let me go beyond Philadelphia. It is my view that it is absolutely imperative that Donald Trump be defeated. And I will tell you this, that given the level of poverty and income inequality in our country that currently exists, if Trump were an ordinary conservative Republican, it would be a disaster if he were elected president. But he is not an ordinary conservative Republican. Donald Trump is a demagogue. He has made bigotry and hatred the cornerstone of his campaign. I really dread thinking about what this country would look like if, God forbid, Donald Trump were to be elected. And I have to tell you that I will do everything that I can to prevent that from happening. And that means I will be probably in many of your states within the next couple of months. I intend to play an active role in this campaign. Number 5, I think, as all of you know, today I endorsed Hillary Clinton. Now, I know, and no one has to explain to me, that we have very serious differences with Secretary Clinton. But I think it is also fair to say that there is no issue, virtually no issue out there, where she is not far, far, far superior to Donald Trump. And I will tell you also that, as some of you may know, in the last number of weeks, we have been sitting down and negotiating and talking to the Clinton people. I met with the secretary, I don't know, I think it was June 14th here in D.C. We had a long discussion. And what we have worked on in the last few weeks are two proposals, which I think are pretty significant, which she has now announced her support for. One is, and I think you all know that I made making public colleges and universities tuition-free a cornerstone of our campaign. I believe in that very, very strongly. Well, she didn't go that far, but what she did announce just last week is her support for a proposal that would make public colleges and universities tuition-free for people, for families earning less than $125,000 a year, which is about 83% of the population in America. She also has, and we work with her on this, very strong language dealing with student debt in this country. It is altogether a quite strong program. And secondly, just the other day, we announced a program on health care. Clearly, it is not a Medicare for all single-payer program. That is what I want. It is not that. But what it does do is have her being out on record in supporting an opt-in for Medicare for people 55 or older, and also a public option, which means that if passed, people in every state in this country would have the opportunity to get a public insurance program, which in all likelihood, which will be better and cheaper than the private insurance programs they now have to choose from. And to me, and I know this is not a sexy issue, but it is of enormous consequence, she agreed to double funding for community health centers. Today, about 25 million Americans, mostly low and moderate income people, but not always. Sometimes in Vermont, for example, where 25% of the people get their health care from community health clinics, you have middle-class people using it as well. And what these community health centers do is provide primary health care, dental care, which is a huge crisis in this country, mental health counseling, which is an even worse crisis, and low-cost prescription drugs for people who get their health care there. If you have no money, it's a sliding scale. They welcome Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance. What she has agreed to do is to double funding for those health centers, which means that 15, 20, 25 million Americans more will be able to access health care with these community health centers and get low-cost prescription drugs, etc. That is not an insignificant step forward. Now, in terms of the presidential election, I will be probably campaigning sometimes as part of the Clinton campaign, and sometimes we'll be doing it independently. That has not yet been worked out. So that is kind of where I am right now. And let me now go to a sheet, if I can find it here, of the questions that some of you have asked. I got it. Okay. Will the delegates, what's going to happen to delegates in Philadelphia? Well, the answer is we need you there, and we need you to vote for Bernie Sanders for president. And my hope is we can get 1,900 votes on the first ballot. I indicated to you why I endorsed Secretary Clinton at this point, not later. We have worked on some agreements that I think are significant in terms of health care and higher education, and I think we've had real success on the platform, so I did think it was appropriate to support her today. Now, in terms of the TPP, let me say this. It is impossible to predict what happens in the lame duck session. It is my view, as you all know, that the TPP should not come up in the lame duck session. And you should know that is Hillary Clinton's point of view. President Obama disagrees. He supports the TPP, and he wants it to come up, and he wants it to pass if possible. What our job now, it seems to me, is to do everything outside of the Democratic convention. Right now, getting a hold of Democrats, the vast majority of whom are opposed to the TPP, both in the House and the Senate, and make them tell you that they are not going to allow that to come up in the lame duck session, and if it does come up, they will vote against it. It is hard to say if it would win or lose. I don't know. There are a growing number of Republicans who are opposed to it. We got a lot of Democrats opposed to it, but I worry very much that it could pass. And our job now is to just start working on Democrats in the Congress, in the House, and the Senate to do everything we can to see that it is defeated. There's a question here. Will Senator Sanders meet with and consider endorsing those congressional candidates who endorse them early in the primary and to help all of us get closer to a win? And the answer is, as I said a moment ago, we're going to work as close as we can with as many progressive candidates as possible. Next question, do you intend to remain as the figurehead leader for the progressive movement in the future? Will you continue to work to activate and engage volunteers and activists? The answer is absolutely, I will. There's some discussion about a credential challenge, and I know I have heard that circulating. I don't believe that that is true. We're going to have a bunch of lawyers in Philadelphia, and all of you who were elected as delegates, we will certainly make sure that every one of you takes your seat. There's a question here on fracking. What are the top 3 points you'd like us to make? Well, on fracking, I think we've got to end fracking yesterday. I think it is clearly a major climate change issue, and I think it is a clean water issue. Those are the points that I would make. On unity with the Clinton camp, if you have any personal story to share that can help us say we are okay to disagree about some things, but we need to stand together. Look, let me just say this. This is kind of unusual in American politics. But what we have done is unusual in American politics. In Europe, it is not uncommon for different parties, different groupings to form coalition governments. That's what happens. You have, as all of you know, in Europe you have many, many, many parties. That is not the case in the United States. But, I think right now where we are at is working with the Clinton people, many of whom, by the way, are decent people. They may disagree with us on this or that issue, but many of them are very decent people. And our goal right now is to come together to do everything we can to defeat Donald Trump. That's kind of where I think we are, where we are at. There's a question, Senator Sanders, has been promised a significant role in a potential Hillary Clinton administration? The answer to that is no, I have not. Next question, what is the role of those delegates committed to you at the DNC convention? There's still platform issues that we need to attempt to modify. I think I dealt with that. And I think the very, very, very important issues coming up will be surrounding the Rules Committee and the need to bring basic reforms to the Democratic Party. A question is, will you run again for the U.S. Senate? And I think it's a little bit early for that. I'm not up for another couple of years, but I think the answer is probably yes. How can we effectively fight for the TPP, against the TPP? And, I gave you that answer. It may go to Congress in the lame duck session. And we've just got to wage a national fight. We got some great unions out there who will be working with us. We got great environmental groups. What scares the death out of me, it scares me to death about this TPP. There's not only the loss of jobs, but this investor-state dispute system, which really corporatizes the global economy. It is insane, as you know. Obama did the right thing. He vetoed or he killed the Keystone Pipeline, and now we are being sued for $15 billion by TransCanada. TransCanada did not like the way the democratic process worked in the United States, and they think they have a right to go to a private three-member tribunal and sue us. I mean, that's pretty crazy stuff. You got Philip Morris suing impoverished countries because they're trying to protect their children against tobacco. So I think the fight, which is really where it always has been, is on the floor of the House, U.S. House and the U.S. Senate, for a variety of reasons, some rational and some not. You're going to have Republican opposition to the TPP. Let's do everything we can to beat it. What is the process now that you've endorsed, Secretary Clinton? Well, as I've indicated, we are still officially a candidate. We haven't suspended our campaign. I'm not going to suspend our campaign. We're going to Philadelphia. We got 1,900 delegates. She has more. She's going to come out of there as a nominee. And then I'm going to do everything I can, and I hope you'll join me in defeating Donald Trump. So that is, thank you all for those questions. They are great questions. And let me just conclude. I want you all to understand that you have been part of a real historical event. We have done something that the history books will recall. And we are in the process not just of transforming the Democratic Party, but transforming this country. And what I am going to try to do from now on in, and I hope that all or most of you will be with me, is to build on the successes that we have achieved, to make our effort not just supporting a candidate for president or a candidate for senate, but to take that fight to every level of government to get many, many, many more people involved in the political process. So with that, I just want to, again, thank all of you for the extraordinary efforts that you have made over the last 15 months. On a personal level, Jane and I and my whole family are very, very appreciative of the love and the warmth that we have seen as we have traveled all over the country. It has been on a personal level to get to politics. It's just an enormous experience to meet so many great people. So thank you all very, very much, and I look forward to seeing you all in Philadelphia. Thank you. Take care.
This is Pete again. Thanks everybody for hopping on. Look forward to seeing you all in Philadelphia, and as the senator said, beyond that, as we continue this revolution.
I know some of you will know folks. This is Rich Pelletier. Some of you know folks who weren't able to get on the call tonight. We had maybe some technical difficulties. We will be doing the call again in the next day or two, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
I had to walk out.
Wow. Hold on.